Welcome to the Beyond the Scope podcast presented by NDMD Productions and made possible by Augusta Podcast, your one-stop shop for launching your podcast. Let Augusta Podcast do all the heavy lifting and give you the tools you need to turn your podcast dreams into a reality. Learn more at augustapodcast.com/NDMD. I'm your host, Andy, second-year medical student. And if you're familiar with the NDMD YouTube channel, you'll know that we love sharing stories from students, residents, and attendings of different medical professions while giving you an inside look into their lives, not just as healthcare workers, but as the incredible people they are as well. This podcast continues that mission of sharing the incredible stories and experiences of students, physicians, and healthcare professionals. But this time, it's all about the things all those years of medical training doesn't prepare you for. Things that are beyond the scope of our practice, if you will. So whether it's navigating starting a family as a medical student or physician, or learning how to invest as a student, the goal is to bring on incredible guests and role models who can guide you through those puzzling questions. That being said, let's introduce today's guest. So today I have a fellow second-year medical student from Case Western School of Medicine. If you are PreMed on Instagram, you may be familiar with her blog page, the.medicine.blog, where she features advice from medical students all around the country and free MCAT and medical school application resources to students all around the world. With so much dedication to helping others in the pre-med process and a big advocate of what we're going to talk about today, the business side of medicine and opportunities to expand your medical career beyond the walls of the hospital, please give a warm welcome to Clara.
Wow, thanks so much, Andy.
You like the intro?
Yeah. I love the intro. Very, very nice. I'm super excited to be here. One of the things, like you mentioned my blog, and like one of the positive aspects that it brings is just like connecting me with so many cool people, other medical creators like yourself. So I'm super happy to be here and glad that we're able to talk today.
Oh, the honor's all mine. Thank you. Yeah, I'm still like getting used to hearing myself considered a med school or medical creator. I don't think I'm ever going to get used to it, but because it comes with the territory.
Definitely.
But hope you had a safe and happy holidays, and we'll get started. So for those who do not know who you are, can you kind of briefly introduce yourself, where you're from, what undergrad you went to with your major, then what specialty you're thinking of right now? I know that last one is a loaded question and subject to change, but it's always fun to speculate.
Yeah, definitely. I am excited to see kind of like where my friends and I end up in a couple years. So definitely fun to see where we start and where we end up at. So yeah, thanks for the great intro again. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I have a younger sister, and my parents, to go way back, they immigrated from China here. And then I went to college at the University of Miami in Florida. Super fun school. I had a great time there, met a lot of cool people, really interesting, cool experiences. And I decided to do a double major in neuroscience and economics. And so I was originally neuroscience major, kind of like always starting with that pre-med track, but I kept my options open just because I kind of thought it was easier to switch out of the pre-med track than it was to switch in. And then I added the economics major just because I really thought that was really interesting, like the business side of everything, behavioral economics, all that was really cool to me. And so I did that. And specialty-wise, I feel like right now I'm all over the place, and similar to you, excited to start rotation soon, also a little bit scared, but I think I found like interventional radiology really interesting because I had one shadowing experience in like high school and I thought it was really cool. So that's something that I've been interested in, radiology in general, like diagnostic radiology as well, and possibly a surgical subspecialty, but we'll see if I like surgery after rotations.
After rotation,
yeah.
Ultimate asterisk.
Yeah, but I'm excited. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, IR is a great field. I've been sold on it plenty of times by my friend Dr. Cellini. But yeah, I think also something that you mentioned, the fact that you started out kind of pre-med track and then added it on later. The fact that you said it's easier to switch out of and not into pre-med is something I think a lot of pre-meds or people considering pre-med need to hear? Because I've never heard that perspective before. It was
Hmm.
always like, all right, if you're gonna be in pre-med, just stick with it, like
Yeah.
persevere throughout the long run. But
Hmm.
I think that's a really good early tip for those who are just like coming out of high school, going to college, and going, all right, what should I major in?
Hmm. Yeah, because I feel like not just, I mean, my sister, she's a freshman in college right now. She has like no idea what she wants to major in. She's like stressed because it seems like all her classmates have everything figured out, but she doesn't. And I'm just like, it's okay. It's like you haven't had enough experiences to really know what you like or what you don't like. So obviously you can't have everything figured out yet, which is kind of like what I'm telling myself about specialties because I'm stressed. I don't know what specialty I want to do, but I haven't had the experience to really know myself well enough yet to be able to make that decision. And yeah, I just feel like you should always keep an open mind. And even major wise, like it really doesn't matter for medical school, in my opinion. Kind of like if you study like biology or music or finance, like you can still get into medical school and you can still get all the classes and requirements done that you need to. So
Exactly. I think people always associate like, oh, what is a pre-med major?
yeah.
But in reality, it's like as long as you check all the prereqs,
Hmm.
you can apply to med school. I've seen a dance major go to med school, and
Yeah.
I always use that example. And that just comes to show you could literally do anything as long as you hit the prereqs.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
100% agree.
So, kind of get to know you a little bit more. Did you always know you were gonna go to med school?
Yeah, I guess that kind of aligns with the major stuff because, like, I went into college as a pre med, but I was never really 100% sure, right? Like, as a freshman, and I definitely wanted to explore my options. Kind of going from high school to college, I was just like, whoa, like, there's so many other things you can do. And one of the experiences that really kind of opened my eyes to the business side of medicine and like the startup world, innovation side. So after my freshman year, in between the summer of freshman and sophomore year, I was able to do an internship in Tel Aviv, Israel, and that city is kind of like San Francisco, where there's like so many startups happening, medical related, others that just so many innovations, and I just had no idea what this was kind of before college, and I thought that was always attractive as well. And so with more experiences, kind of like talking to older students, talking to mentors, then I ultimately decided to apply to medical school and continue pursuing the medical degree. But I wasn't like born day one elementary school or anything like that. Like I always want to be a doctor. I feel like through experiences, something just like realizing what I wanted, what kind of problems I wanted to solve in the future, that kind of helped me make my decision that I wanted to pursue medicine.
You said experiences. Can you elaborate on maybe what experiences guided you to med school, and maybe even like now that you're in med school, what experiences have you had within the first year and a half of med school that are kind of guiding where you see your career?
Yeah. So definitely a big question. Still figuring things out today. Like just so yeah, definitely don't have my whole life planned out in front of me. But I think some of the experiences that really showed me that I wanted to go to med school. That's what I want to do. I want to take care of patients and be a physician. One was definitely just through like volunteering because in Miami we have, or as an undergrad, we were able to volunteer at a bunch of free health clinics. And for these are patients in the Miami-Dade County like community that don't have health insurance, or some of them don't have like transportation. Many people in Miami, they only speak Spanish. And so sometimes like health literacy was a barrier as well to getting them healthcare. So just like through those personal patient experiences that really reinforced that I wanted to go to medicine and take care of patients. And with kind of like the business side, in addition to my internship experience with a startup in Israel, I think one of my big college kind of commitments was part of Tamid Group. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but
No.
so it started at University of Michigan a while ago. I forget the exact history of it, but the goal was to connect college students with startups in Israel so that students could get real life consulting experience, and then those startups would get free consulting advice. And especially if companies wanted to enter into the US market, they had kind of connections and students here that they could reach out to. So we had a chapter at Miami. Now it's like definitely a growing chapter, huge, yeah, a lot of growth recently. So in Miami, I was part of that all 4 years, and it really just like opened my eyes to kind of what other aspects of healthcare there was besides just being a like dentist, being a nurse or PA or a doctor and only practicing and seeing patients. Like I realized there's so much more you could do as a physician with your medical expertise and clinical knowledge to be able to kind of solve other problems besides just treating a patient's illness. And I kind of forgot the second part of your question, but hopefully that answered the first one with like my pre-med like experiences and kind of like what guided me to medicine.
Well, I think you were on the way to actually answering the second part of the question, which was
Yeah.
kind of what experiences have you had even in med school, which are guiding where you see your career? And you've already hinted at like there's a lot of things you can do as a physician that is outside of the clinic and outside of the OR.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm curious because it seems like you know a ton about this, and I'll ask you some more specific questions about startups in a second.
Okay.
Mainly because like my business and entrepreneurship like expertise is more within the digital media influencer like the marketing side of things.
Yeah.
Like formal startups, I'm actually not very familiar with. So, can you detail first off, like what are the other opportunities outside of just being the
Mm-hmm.
rote doctor that you can expand your career with?
Yeah, definitely. So I think so I didn't take any gap years between college and medical school. And I think partly was just because everyone at Miami kind of seemed to go straight through. I didn't really know that many people who took multiple years off to go work and then go to medical school. Or if my friends took a year off, it was just to kind of like scribe or volunteer or do some research. And for me, I didn't really feel like I wanted to do that. I kind of just wanted to go straight through. But then once I got into medical school, I met all these crazy, like very impressive classmates who are just amazing people, and people that came from Google, people who came from Amazon or other like healthcare startups, and now are medical school. And I was just,
What?
yeah, I was like, that is crazy. And I just didn't really know of any people who did that beforehand. So that definitely opened my eyes. And I think that's also like one thing, a side note, it's like one thing that's really exciting about medical school for any pre-meds who are listening is that like you will meet a bunch of people with different experiences and be able to learn from them. So it's really interesting to hear kind of like people's backgrounds before they came into medical school. But yeah, so then met my classmates who kind of had that background, healthcare consulting backgrounds, yeah, or working kind of at companies doing programming and stuff like that. And then I found this Slack community. So this is a shout out to MD++. And for anyone who's interested too, I'm happy to talk more about it if you want to reach out to me separately through email or anything. But MD++ definitely has been such a good experience as well. So that's like a huge community on Slack. There's medical students there who might have worked at health startups or VC firms prior to medical school. There's also students who were in medical school, maybe realized that medicine or being a practicing physician wasn't the right path for them personally and didn't pursue residency, but are now like working at consulting firms like McKinsey or BCG and working on their healthcare team there, or any type of like investing with hedge funds or anything like that. And there's also a lot of like MD PhDs in that community as well who are interested in more of the life sciences, like biotech innovation startup world. So many very impressive people in that Slack group with many diverse passions, and it's been cool to find a community like that, because I think that's kind of what I was missing in college, because I kind of felt like I had to choose either the business route or medical school. And I thought, okay, the only way to kind of like get involved with business as a physician is to get an MBA. So I was looking at only schools that offer like an MD, MBA dual degree. And I realized like that's definitely not the case at all. And there's so many ways to just kind of like weave your medical passion and business passion together to into your future career. So, yeah.
So how easy do you think it is to kind of incorporate that business side into your medical career once you graduate med school? Because it seems like you've been in these groups where you've seen very good and positive case studies of that happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great term to use there. Case studies. So academic.
Sorry,
I love it. I know. I know. So yeah, I think also what I was unsure of is like, I was like, yeah, how am I going to integrate like my business, I guess, passion when I'm in residency or when I'm practicing? Because I also, for me personally, I do want to pursue residency. I do want to practice and see patients. And so it's like, I want to be a good doctor and get that done well and be, yeah, a good clinician, but also try to get involved with this business side as well. So I feel like it's definitely doable, but it can be difficult, I guess, to manage the time if somebody wants to do both, because that's kind of why some people, I've talked to physicians who are psychiatrists saying that they're still able to see patients a few times a week, but that's also because with their specialty, they can afford to do that, and they're not like surgeons who need to practice all the time and be operating a certain number of times, like a month or year, to still be a practicing physician. So I definitely think it's doable, but depending on specialty, it might be a little bit more challenging. And I think it also depends kind of what business aspects you want to do on the side, because I think many physicians might get involved with hospital administration. That's definitely one route to go. Managing, a hospital, maybe becoming CEO in the future of that hospital, or consulting, or many physicians also have their own startups, kind of like they might realize what's a problem, for example, in the urology field, and then they'll develop a product there. So I think it's definitely doable to manage both, but yeah, it can be challenging depending on what your interests are.
Yeah. And I think one of the prime examples of somebody that did it very well is, I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Austin Chang at
yes.
Jefferson.
Yeah.
Med.
Yes.
So I have a lot of friends who like personally know him, as well as like a couple of people at Jefferson, because for some reason that med school churns out influencers like no other. I don't understand why.
Yeah.
But guys like Josh Chen, Zach Hiley, Jake Goodman, all of them.
They were all from there?
Yeah.
Really?
All of them went there. And then our friend Dr. Adam Goodkoff in Chicago, he is actually mentored by Dr. Austin Chang.
Yeah.
Because again, if you know who this is, he's a GI. I believe he's chief of the department.
I think so.
And also he was like the chief social media officer of the entire medical college, who, like, I mean, that would be a position that I would love to have, when I work my way up the ranks, way down in my career. But he just accepted a CMO position
at Medtronic, right?
Yes, Medtronic.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's been the reason why that kind of shook up the medical world, and without going into too much detail, because even I have some thoughts about it. It's been the most like jarring example of somebody in medicine diving headfirst into the business realm while still being able to see patients. I think, as far as what Josh told me, he still is in the hospital seeing patients 3 or 4 times a week.
Wow.
But he's in GI, which is not, it's not like an easy, I have all the time in the world specialty. So he's able to make it work. I think like there is definitely a future for physicians in the business world.
Mm-hmm. And he's so popular on social media too. I feel like that's another thing, which you said that's kind of like more of your expertise and like passion in, is with the production and social media. But I feel like with TikTok and everything, like that's been very new as well. So it's really, really cool to see. And definitely not, I feel like it's also kind of helping the image that physicians are also just like normal people too. Like
Exactly.
don't know why once you're a doctor,
Exactly.
it's like you can't act a certain way or whatever while still being professional. But it is really cool. I'm glad you brought him up, how he's still practicing, he's on social media and still being professional, and he's involved with this. He's a CMO of a huge company. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy. Super impressive. Don't know how he has time to do that, but
I honestly have no idea either. But it's very interesting. I have not met him or talked to him in person, but it's like
mhm.
really weird knowing that like the people I have talked with
Yeah.
like know him very well, and to hear like very interesting, empowering stories about his journey.
Hmm.
But I think like kind of moving forward. Also, I love the fact that you said like doctors can do other things because
Yeah.
I'm always in my head. There's the whole LeBron quote back when like all craziness was happening in the world. People were like, "Shut up and dribble." I think sometimes in a way, physicians are kind of viewed the same way, where it's like
Hmm.
just go see patients, leave the business world, to the guys in suits. But
Hmm.
I think there is room for overlap
Yeah.
there, and especially and this actually kind of goes to my next question,
Wow. What a great
which was
transition.
exactly, um, like why do you think it's so important for med students, physicians, and I mean like when I mean med students and pre-meds, the future physicians of the world to get involved in the business side of healthcare.
Hmm.
And like in my head, I can already think of like, 5, 10 reasons why that is incredibly
Yeah.
useful. And I know we've had conversations back and forth because at one point I was considering getting an MBA as well, and that's still not completely out of the cards yet, but
Hmm.
I don't really know where that goes. And I know, like you said, you were considering it too. So
Yeah.
there's obviously this movement towards physicians being more involved with the business side of healthcare. So why do you think it's so important that that movement's there?
Yeah. I've talked to some residents. I've talked to one of my PIs. He's either finishing up or is already finished with his executive MBA that he's doing like while he's practicing, while working with the startup, and talking to a resident as well who is, I think, second year residency and got his MBA during medical school and is also emphasizing or telling me to how he just like sees medicine, sees seeing the patients, everything that's going on through the hospital through a more, I guess, quality improvement lens, and that not everybody will, I guess, like see the same. Like we all know, not everyone sees the same situation like the exact same way, but having that business background, that business mindset, I think naturally like prompts you to ask yourself, like in a situation, if you go to the waiting room, it's just kind of like why is this service really slow? What is happening? What can be improved through this? Like seeing patient, what can be done to, yeah, just improve this process? Like, do we need paper forms like this? Like, why do we still have to do fax machines? Or just like simple questions like that, I think is really important to think about. And having a business mindset kind of, at least for me, I feel like I see every situation through a business lens and not just in terms of like, oh, what can be more efficient, but just even basic quality improvement things of like what makes sense. Like if there's like three different paths to get to the same destination, like I'm going to take the shortest, like fastest, most convenient one. But sometimes in healthcare, there's just so many middlemen, so many things in the middle that's like a barrier to just finding out like the price of a medical service. Like it's for, so I guess like for me, I think it's super important because if you're going to be a healthcare worker, no matter if you're a doctor or a nurse or PA, we're going to be working in this healthcare system that's treating our patients. And I just think it's so important to understand just the system that we're working in because, and also like if I'm going to see a patient in the future, whatever specialty I do, if they have to get this prescription medication, or if they have to get a certain procedure done or surgery, I definitely want to make sure their health is the number one priority. Like as a physician, our customers, like quote unquote, are the patients, and that's what should be our main focus. But at the same time, I don't want them to be treated, get their medication, go home, but then have a huge bill, huge $100 or $1,000 bill also waiting. That also will add extra stress, extra pressure. And I just, like, for me, health, and yeah, this is all my opinion, but for me, health is a right, not a privilege. And I just think it's crazy how we have to pay ridiculous prices just to kind of go see a doctor for a normal checkup. And I just feel like there's many, many issues within our healthcare system that really will be best solved and addressed from physicians, from healthcare workers who have worked in the system and talked to patients, not necessarily from people who are kind of like on the outside looking in or prioritize profits over patients. Sorry if I'm rambling, but I just feel like there's so much to say in every aspect to answer your question. So I'm trying to like cover everything, but without being too confusing.
I think like at least in my head, and I think you'll probably agree with this too, it distills down to two big things. One is empowering change. I love that you were kind of saying when you are working in the hospital, you're reviewing things from like a quality improvement standpoint, because I think a lot of times, and this may just be kind of the more jaded physicians working in the system, where it's like, yes, I know this is wrong, or yes, I know this is inefficient, but their approach to it is that's how it is.
Yeah.
So we go along with it and deal with it. Whereas if you are a little bit more involved in kind of the ins and outs and you understand the business side, you know, okay, here is kind of the limiting region here. We got to change this
Yeah.
to make things a little bit more efficient. And I think that's where having that knowledge and experience really helps you as a physician. And then kind of an extension of that, we, at least at MCG, do a ton of work like with just training people to think holistically about the patient. All of our cases that we did ended with a discussion about, okay, how is this prescription going to affect the family? How are they going to afford this? When we're sending them home, are they going to be able to get the support they need? Because like you don't just discharge and forget. That's a human life in your hands. And as the medical team, you have responsibility for that. And so I've actually heard of physicians who do have a deeper understanding of, especially the insurance side of things, and that's a whole wormhole in itself that we are not going to talk about. But like, you know, they know the ways to code things certain ways so that like the patient gets some medications at either a cheaper rate or, you know, gets services, you know, for free, so that it's not a burden to them. But it's just, if you're not taught that, or if you don't know the ins and outs of how to code things, you might accidentally be sending a patient home, like you said, with a humongo bill that is going to impact their road to recovery.
Yeah, exactly. And I think something really related to the business side of medicine is also health policy. And at one of the, I was able to go to this radiology conference last year, which was really a great opportunity. And one of the talks they had was about medical bills, and specifically surprise medical bills. And that's something that I read about in the past. Not sure how many people are familiar with it. I'm not sure if you've heard of that term before. Yeah, so it's just something that I think is ridiculous. And I feel like healthcare is one of the few industries where you don't see the price beforehand. Like everything you buy when you get a service done, like you know the price that you're paying before you get the service done. Whereas in medicine, it's just the complete opposite. And then even if you ask for the price beforehand, it's just like many people don't know. They have no idea. And so with surprise medical bills, that's basically the term is kind of like what it is. It's just like patients will go to the ER or just get a certain procedure done or some maybe like a CT scan, and then a radiologist or somebody will be reading that, but then they'll bill for that service. But it's just, even if the patient has insurance, they could still, that physician or whoever was doing that service could be out of network technically. There's so many complicated things, and then they'll be billed and the insurance won't pay for that. So you could get like a $1,000 bill for like a simple like 10-minute ER visit or just like a simple checkup, which is crazy to me. And I just think it further like puts all the burden, financial cost and burden onto the patient when they, even if they did everything right, like went to the right hospital, like saw a doctor who was in network, they could still suffer these like financial consequences. So I think that's a little bit more health policy related, but I've seen through that talk like physicians who are really big advocates for patients, and because they understand this, they're able to make actual changes either in insurance policies or through other institutions. That's been really inspiring to me. So I just think it's having, kind of adding to your question again, like having that business background, you'll be a better advocate for your patients at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary, because we'll probably move forward in a second because we can talk about this all day
I know.
long. And I think like that, to any medical students or even pre-med students watching or listening, that really does show the importance of just financial literacy, and then knowing the healthcare system, your healthcare system, wherever you are in the world. Obviously, we're speaking from the U.S., but just having that understanding at the end of the day distills down to being a proper patient advocate. But I think kind of moving on, I did say I was going to mention this again, just because I'm curious.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about different healthcare startups. What are the most interesting ones, I guess, in your opinion? Because I know there's probably a ton.
Yeah.
But if, say, there's a med student listening or watching right now that wants to get involved in a healthcare startup, can you maybe list a couple that you find are kind of emerging?
Yeah, there's, like you said, there are a ton. I think one of them that started in Ohio actually, that I've recently learned about is called Enlighten Mobility. So that one was founded by a patient who had difficulty with kind of the rehabilitation aspect. I forget exactly what injury it was, but just creating a device to help patients transitioning from kind of being in the hospital inpatient into like with physical therapy, creating better equipment for patients of like different sizes and everything, to be able to learn how to walk again, for example. And just, I think rehab or just being able to have that improves quality of life is super important. And I feel like for certain, maybe like niche specialties or like more niche problems that patients might be facing, it's hard to see these like innovative startups, whereas like many people might focus on kind of more bigger like issues that might generate more money and stuff like that. So I think it's really interesting to see how there's a lot more startups that are focusing on a specific patient population and really targeting those patients with like certain chronic diseases or like the rehab, like I was just saying, but chronic diseases such as like diabetes, GI issues, and mental health as well, but just like really targeting one condition and helping these vulnerable patients. So I think that's really cool. Something else that I think is interesting is back in college, I also volunteered at a hospice, and that was definitely can be very sad at times. But I think even with some of our lessons and classes that we talk about in medical school, just kind of end of life care and how to approach talking to patients, how to give bad news, I feel like it's very difficult for people to talk about death, or even kind of like ask their loved ones kind of like, what do you want done, like in the case like an event happens. And so one of the startups that I came across, I think it's called Lantern, but they try to help people who, not just the people who are maybe in hospice or who are facing death, but their family members who are kind of taking care of them, like how to deal with everything that goes on around this so that you're not just by yourself handling everything on top of like emotional stress and everything else going on. So they have like packages and stuff where they can kind of help you navigate through that difficult process before things happen afterwards. And I think it's important to talk about these things that because yeah, it's definitely more difficult when it's too late to have those type of conversations. But there's so many startups, like you said again, and we could talk about that for days. But those are some ones that I thought were interesting.
Okay, and I think that's a good starting list. I'm gonna have to start looking some of these up. Now you've introduced me to a whole new rabbit hole of medicine.
Yeah.
But I hope to be able to make a list or something. Do you know if there's any sort of resource out there that has?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Crunchbase is a really good website just for startups in general. And I'm sure you can filter through like healthcare specific startups, what cities they're in, how much funding they've raised so far. And yeah, there's so many different filters you can put on. So Crunchbase, and then also PitchBook is another website where they list all of these startups. But I feel like those are kind of more for, I think PitchBook also costs money, but I think for general like healthcare startup news, I definitely recommend Stat Health. Stat is awesome, and they have really good, I think, weekly newsletters of kind of like recent companies, recent startups, what company bought which company, stuff like that. And then also Healthcare Huddle is another good resource as well. It's kind of like Morning Brew. I'm not sure if you've heard of Morning Brew. Yeah, but it's like, it's like Morning Brew, but healthcare focused.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm probably gonna link some of those down in the description or description episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called description in Spotify. Wow.
Yeah. It's different from YouTube. I don't know what YouTube you call it.
It's description too.
Okay.
Oh well,
It's the same thing.
I get everything mixed up. But so now, kind of wrap things up. I want to turn the focus to kind of another passion of yours, which is advisement to pre-med.
Yeah.
To the pre-med community. So, kind of open things up. What is your advice to pre-meds or even current medical students with strong interests outside of medicine? Like, how would you advise them to pursue and focus in on those and not lose yourself in just fully only medicine? Say that.
Yeah, I think, well, one, if you're a person who is passionate about like biology research, being in the lab, like actually, and really passionate about those types of sciences, like definitely go for it. Like that's what you're interested in. You don't need to like find something else not related to science, healthcare, medicine at all to stand out or be a good medical student at all. But for those of you who do have these other interests, whether it's music, writing, and or business, anything at all, I think it's important to continue doing those because you don't like I feel like being in medical school too and being a doctor, you don't have to sacrifice your other interests. And I feel like that's it. Your interests, whether they're medicine related or not, is like what makes you who you are. It's your story, and definitely will help you be a better clinician, because I feel like in not just in medicine, but other industries take stuff from other industries all the time. And like I said, having that dual background in business and all of my peers who have came from other backgrounds, whether it's like history, writing, stuff like that, it always helps them be a better medical student, be a better physician. So don't feel like you have to sacrifice those interests at all, and maybe find a way too to be able to merge the two together. So like for one example, as a medical student, I'm trying to kind of have my research focused on medicine as well, but also including more like health policy, cost effectiveness type of research to try to kill two birds with one stone. So That's my advice.
Yeah, I mean, you you nailed it. I've said multiple times in many videos,
Yeah.
you try to merge your outside passions with medicine, and like again, I find it fairly easy because I do a lot of video work, and
Hmm.
video work with the school and everything, particularly in simulation education, which is a ton of fun. But that's just like there's a couple examples there, but
Yeah.
opportunities are endless.
Yeah. And you can create your own opportunities too. Like if you can't find anything related to what you're looking for, just start it yourself. Like, why not?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like what you did with your podcast.
Yeah. And actually started, speaking of starting your own, how did you, or, why did you start your Instagram blog?
Oh, great question. So I started it, yeah, when we were first quarantining, I was like in my basement.
Quarantine project. Love to
Yeah,
hear it.
in my basement. This was right before, yeah, so technically I graduated college from my couch and then right before medical school. I felt like I learned a lot about the pre-med process, as I'm sure many people have when they go through taking the MCAT, the year-long process of applying to medical schools, interviewing, and many of my peers would reach out to me asking for advice, asking for questions, and I definitely am not everything I say is correct. Like it's just through my own experience, but I felt like I really enjoyed helping my peers and having them learn from my mistakes, especially the ones with the MCAT. And I just felt like there weren't many people who many pre-meds didn't have like great pre-med advisors to have these like specific personal experiences. Pre-med advisors don't always they don't go through the pre-med process. They didn't just recently take the MCAT. So I felt like creating a blog would be a way to reach more students and be able to help them answer any questions, because similar to how I didn't really have like a business minded mentor when I was in college, I feel like many students as well might not have a really robust like pre-med program at their college or medical schools and people to reach out to. So I wanted to be able to offer pre-med advice, definitely, and also continue my passion for just connecting with people, finding people with similar interests, like with business as well, and others. Just like I said earlier, just like meeting so many different people throughout the world, throughout the U.S. Just being able to do that, and definitely would not have happened without the my blog. So
Yeah, and it's a fantastic resource. Again, if you haven't followed it, you definitely should at the.medicine.blog. I'll give you the publicity.
thanks, I appreciate it.
Always like hyping up fellow creators.
Yeah.
But we're gonna wrap up in the spirit of kind of my 73 question interviews.
Mm.
These are the reflective questions.
Oh no,
So
I'm scared.
no, you don't have to be. These won't. If you survive med school interviews, this is nothing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So first question is, what is one advice you would give yourself a year ago?
Ooh, great advice. A year ago, first year med student, Clara, I would say definitely what I've always been trying to work on, but just staying in the present more and enjoying the moment and just not trying to rush through the process. Whereas it's like even just like day to day, like moments when I'm just hanging out with my friends, having time off or having a really cool experience, learning experience in class or the hospital, because I just think everything like winter break went by super fast. And in medicine, I'm always like thinking about the next step. Like now that I'm in med school, I'm thinking about taking step, I'm thinking about rotations, I'm thinking about residency, like reaching for the next goal. Whereas like that's definitely important, but I don't want to just be focused so much on the future that I'm not focused on like the present, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
that's definitely something that I've learned this past year.
All right, that's some good advice. Next question. What is one advice you would give to your future self?
Ooh. Um, For my future self, I would say, I guess, like, don't forget to, no matter how busy I am, don't forget to just reach out to people, reach out to friends. Quick 30-minute FaceTime, that's not gonna ruin, like, make me unproductive or anything. I just feel like maintaining those relationships that are super important.
That's also really good advice. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, and now last question.
Okay.
Because we've touched on this. A lot of pre-meds are watching this, wanting to be in you and I's shoes one day as a medical student. What is the one advice you would give to the prospective med student watching or listening right now?
Oh, very loaded question as well. I would, like, similarly to what I was saying, I just feel like you should enjoy being a pre-med. Enjoy, if you're in college, enjoy your college experience, because it's just gonna fly by so fast. And I think med school has been so fun. Like, I love my friends that I've made in medical school. It's been a great experience, definitely tough sometimes, but I think having college too, like, just try not to rush everything, and just, yeah, being more present, enjoying your last semester, enjoy being a senior, like, yeah, getting into medical school and everything, like, focusing on that's really important, and it'll be amazing once you get in, but don't forget to enjoy where you currently are at, whether it's college or, like, your gap years or anything. Because, like, I guess many people are like, what should I do, like, the summer before first year of med school? I'm like, don't do anything. Like, don't study. Yeah, they're like, they're like, should I do like flashcards? I'm like, no, don't. Enjoy your break.
Oh, the amount of times I've heard that too. It's like, so do I study before my first? It's like, nope.
Yeah.
Do not do it. You're gonna be doing more than enough studying when you get here. So,
exactly.
Go enjoy. But yeah, I think that is a very fitting conclusion to a podcast episode. Thank you so much, Clara.
Thank you
for your time, and seriously, best of luck in your second semester, second year.
Yes.
Gosh, my med school schedule has messed up like my entire time of where everybody is. So
yeah, everyone's schedule is so different, so can't blame you.
For sure. Well, thank you so much. Again, follow Clara on Instagram. Awesome resources there, and everything linked in the description. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the Beyond the Scope podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's guest, and to make sure that you don't miss a single episode, make sure that you follow Beyond the Scope on all streaming platforms, as well as if you want to see the full video cut, subscribe to my YouTube channel, NDMD. As always, subscribe, like, follow, comment, all that good stuff, and we'll see you in the next one.